Welcome to the Unapologetically Neurodivergent podcast, where we drop the mask, drop the shame, and talk honestly about living in a world that wasn't built for our brains. I'm James, the fitness and mind coach, and today I'm joined by someone who's been shaking up the fitness space in the best possible way, Rhiannon Cooper. Rhiannon's a personal trainer, podcast host, and officially diagnosed neurodivergent. For years, she thought she just hated exercise. Turns out she didn't hate moving her body at all. She just needed fitness to work with her brain instead of against it. Quick heads up before we dive in, this podcast is unfiltered, unsanitized with the occasional swearing. We're not here to sell fake positivity, just raw, real chat. So, Rhiannon, welcome to the podcast. As usual with all our guests, I just want you to introduce yourself and tell us what it's like in a day in the life of Rhiannon.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Rhiannon. I'm a personal trainer. And I was late diagnosed with autism and ADHD when I was 30 years old. So, 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. I'm on a journey in my life right now, which is about following energy and doing things that make me feel good and helping people along the way. So, a day in the life for me is usually a bit all over the place and a bit scattered, which you might resonate with. Sort of all or nothing a lot of the time, but in general I try very hard just to make sure I'm moving forwards in everything that I do, whether that is personal training or training myself in the gym or just helping people navigate life as an anxious neurodivergent person. That's kind of a sum up of me anyway.
Yeah. You mentioned PTing, and for those that have followed your story, you stumbled it through like your personal journey. What was your relationship before, and how did that sort of transition into PTing? Because we both have similar stories in terms of PT was is a cause and effect of what we were pursuing rather than our main goal.
Yeah, so as I said, I was diagnosed 3 years ago. And at that time of my life, I was severely unwell mentally. So probably the most depressed I've been. Growing up, I was always the weird kid, quirky, just never fit in. The very normal story that we hear if you're late diagnosed. So we know what that is. But when it came to exercise, so not only was I weird and quirky, I was also the big girl. I was the one that was picked last in PE, unless it was netball, because I could have really good aim and always score a goal. So, it was a silver lining somewhere. But in general, me and exercise did not click, and I never knew why. I just thought that, I hate exercise. And that was my understanding of my relationship when it came to sports, running, anything really. My diagnosis genuinely changed my life, not just because I was able to understand myself more, but because it enabled me to use that new understanding to kind of understand how I could exercise. So the short version of this story is I was walking with my wife in the woods with our dogs, which we would do every day. At that time, I had a horse. I didn't ride said horse. So before anyone jumps on here and says, oh, how could you ride a horse when you were that big? Well, I didn't, but I had one that I cared for. So just set the tone there. And we're walking. My wife is smaller than me in terms of body weight, always has been, probably always will be. And she was out of breath. She's got some physical health conditions. Mine were mostly mental, but I wasn't out of breath. We're walking along and I was like quite smug because I wasn't out of breath. So therefore I must be fitter. And I guess an element of that was right. I had a higher kind of base level of fitness, let's say, where I didn't get breathless. But the more I sat with that conversation, the more I realized that I couldn't remember the last time I was out of breath. And then, so at the time, I wasn't a personal trainer, by the way. Remember, I hate exercise at this point. So if someone had told me that in 3 years' time you'd be a qualified PT, I don't know. I just would have walked away in hysterics, thinking they were crazy. Walking with my wife in the woods. She's breathless, I'm not. And I realized that if I'm not getting breathless, I'm not using my body. And how can I expect my heart, my lungs, and everything to give me a, quote unquote, long and happy life? And I say it with the quotes because I was depressed. I was really, really depressed. but I didn't want to kill myself. I wasn't suicidal. I just was struggling with life. So I have my lovely dogs and they're our children. I didn't want to die early because of my lifestyle choices. So I knew something had to change and I started with calorie counting because that seemed to be the easiest thing. And yes, I lost weight very quickly because I was big. But then I realized, well, I wasn't doing the thing that I wanted to do, which actually was to move my body and make it work and make sure that my lungs were strong and my heart was strong. So I joined a gym, hated it for like 6 months, absolutely hated it. People would say to me after, do you not feel good? Like the endorphins. And I was like, no, I hate it. It's horrible. Horrible place. I just did cardio because, of course, everything else was scary. I didn't know it. It felt alien. So there was this day, and I used to jog a little and walk on a treadmill. That was really what I did. And I put on an episode of The Office, the US version, and I'd watch that, and maybe 2 episodes if I was into it, which was very rare. But one day there was someone on the treadmill next to me, and they were running, and they were slim, they were fit, and they were breathless, and they were sweating. And I remember looking over as I was like panicking internally, thinking, how is it that this person next to me can be like gasping for air, super sweaty, and still going? And then I realized that feeling breathless and getting sweaty for me are triggers to feeling out of control. And the moment I could realize that, which is for me, that's how my neurodivergence presents, is I get very overwhelmed very quickly if I don't feel balanced. I have to feel very in control all the time. And it was like a light bulb moment of, oh my God, it's okay. It's okay to be breathless. It's not a bad thing. It's okay to get sweaty. Also not a bad thing. Actually means you're doing what you need to be doing to move your body. And I remember getting in the car after that day and being like, that's what I need to do. I need to push past this fear, this literal fear I have that I'm going to die when I get breathless. Of course, the reality is that it's almost the reverse. If I never got breathless, I probably was going to die in the future. I wasn't going to die because I was doing exercise. So yeah, it was that moment that was the catalyst to everything that I do now, because I've been talking for a lot, but my opinion on neurodivergent diagnoses is that they're a privilege. I don't think that there are people in this country, in the world, who will never get a diagnosis, either because there are no services available, or they don't have the money to pay for said service and the wait lists are so long, or C, and this is really the group of people that I try and work with, or at least try and appeal to, are the people who are neurodivergent but have no idea, and they will never know. Because if I had never had this particular event happen at my workplace that was the catalyst to me doing my diagnosis journey of trying to find out, what was wrong with me, then I would never have got that diagnosis. I would never have been in the gym, and I would never have realized that it's okay to be breathless and that I can exercise. And it's not that I hate exercise, it's that I just don't know how to do it. No one had ever told little Rhiannon, who struggled with understanding things, that being breathless is okay. And so everything I do is with me in mind pre-diagnosis, because I needed different and nobody was offering it. And yeah, I basically in December last year qualified as a personal trainer and have left mainstream work, which equally is fantastic because I hate working for people. It's hard. And yeah, now I help anxious neurodivergent people kind of prioritize their health in a way that works for them, because the normal way, the typical traditional fitness spaces, they're just not designed for people with sensory overwhelm things and neurodivergence. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, just to note that if anyone is listening to this far and you have the urge to type something stupid in the comments or say anything stupid, don't bother, stop listening and go do something like
Oh yeah, we
eat
get
raw
enough of
diet or
that.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But equally, like we're from the same tribe. Like, but I'm late diagnosis. I didn't have a clue what neurodivergence even was. So I admire what you're trying to do massively in terms of helping people discover. Like you said, you had this unexplained fear
and you could say that was brought on by misleading information from your past about what it is about being overweight and etc. And you went on a journey of self-discovery and you learned that actually that is bullshit. What people, they're just scaremongering. And I think it's great that you took the power into your own hands. Go, do you know what? I'm going to train. I'm going to learn exactly what it means to be a trainer, train people, and also for myself, understand exactly what it is. The one thing that seems to be these keyboard warriors on Instagram seem to lack basic education of how health and fitness works. And we know we've spoken online and we've exchanged conversation of the frustrations and the comments that even I get. And it's so yeah. Do you think that played a role as well? That miscommunication, not just not understanding and there being a gap, because there is. I think you even started this before I even really leaned into it. And I think that's how I come across you personally. So do you feel that that is where your issues, for lack of a better word, started, because it's miscommunication about all this scaremongering around?
I think that honestly, the fitness world is really toxic. I don't think it's inclusive at all. I don't think it's welcoming. I think that there's this obsession with the way people look and the way people perform. And I think that there needs to be a huge shift because as a country and as a world, we know our health in general is really quite poor, especially when you think about people who are carrying extra weight. And I've always been a heavy person. I've never been small. And it's crazy that there's this, it's such a appearance-based industry, and there'll be hateful comments spewed everywhere about the way somebody looks and they should, do something about it. And yet those very people are the personal trainers. Or, okay, I'm casting everyone with the same brush. And I know there are good personal trainers out there, and I do not mean everybody, but the ones that speak the loudest are the ones that people like me are afraid of. And it's this like six of one, half than the other. Go get in the gym, you're fat. Don't be in my gym, you're fat, you're doing it wrong. Go away. Like where are people meant to go? And that's just fat. What about someone who isn't fat, but mentally they can't just walk into an environment like a gym because they've got body image issues, they've had an eating disorder, they've got all these things going on, and they can't do it either. So it's not like even it's just obese, fat, chunky people that aren't welcome. It's almost anybody that's a bit different or just has a different approach to fitness. I had a personal trainer myself on my weight loss journey. So I did lose £100. Maybe I should have said that as well. So I went on a weight loss journey myself. I always forget that because weight to me, that's not actually how it transformed. And maybe this is the whole point. So I had lost £40 on my own. And then I basically wanted to try the weight section. And I didn't have the confidence to do it myself. So I had this moment of I either stick doing my cardio, and what I had done is bought some home dumbbells from Amazon for home. And I used to Google or YouTube home workouts, beginner, dumbbell, no jumping. And that was what I did. And I learned how to do things. But obviously, I don't have a leg press. I don't have like a leg curl or a barbell. And I kept seeing influencers who were good ones, to be fair, who would be in the gym, and I wanted to try it, but I couldn't do it alone. So I joined a personal trainer, and well, she was great. She's a nice person. She helped me lose another £60, which is how I got to my 100. But one day I came in to the gym and I was struggling a bit at that time. I mentioned my wife had some physical health issues. We've had quite a lot go on, and I was struggling with my eating. So my nutrition was slipping. And I remember she came in, and for some reason this day she said, we need a goal. It was like maybe she'd done some CPD on goal setting. And she's like, we need a goal. Now, bear in mind, the reason I started was to be healthier. I never had a weight in mind. For me, losing weight was a bonus. It was never the goal. It was never that I want to be X kilograms or so many stone. It was that I want to live a healthy, happy life. And she came in and I can remember I just got to under 100 kilos. So I was like 98. And she was like, we want to get you to 12 stone. It wasn't that far off. She's like, 12, that's what your goal is. And something about her putting a number on it lost me. And what little commitment I still had at that point was taken away because all of a sudden it became based on what I weigh. That's not health and that's not fitness. And I know someone and they had I think it was maybe a heart attack or a stroke, but they died. They were 41, sat on a sofa. They weren't fat. Like, fitness and weight, yes, they're linked. Of course they are linked. However, the way somebody looks does not determine how fit or healthy they are in their entirety. And the moment she put a number on it, she lost me as a client because that wasn't right. And at that point, I was newly diagnosed. So I was starting to advocate for me. Whereas a year before or during school, whenever, I was always, oh yeah, okay, I wouldn't fight for what I thought because I didn't know what I thought. I was just trying to blend into the background, go with whatever anybody says. 12 stone, okay, 12 stone it is. But actually, it's not about that. A goal can absolutely be, let's be healthier. Let's move my body more. Let's enjoy movement because I spent 30 years hating it and avoiding it like the plague. So yeah, when it comes to, I think the question was about, was it about other personal trainers or something? Remind me of the question, if you can remember it.
No, I think it was. Well, I don't. Can't remember. I think it
It
was
was something about like other PT's approach, maybe
You
something
got me
like that.
so hooked. I lost my own line of thought,
Oh, I
my own
love
chain of
that.
thought. To be fair,
Oh,
uh,
I love
and,
it.
and to be fair, what you were saying is you've hit the nail on the head. So, I've actually been in the industry for just under 20 years. So I've been in there. I'm 38 now. I've been in there when I was just between 18 and 20. I can't remember. And I've climbed the ranks through it, and I've ran and I've owned gyms before, and I've seen the toxicity firsthand. But equally, like you said, I've seen some of the fittest and unfittest people be the complete polar opposites to what you expect on Instagram. And sadly, it's the industry itself. It's really hard to change. Like me and my best mate, we owned a gym and we didn't have a single mirror in it because we relied on correct technique of the personal trainer involved, and that, because that's what, in case anyone's listening, don't realize, that's what your mirrors are for, to check your technique, not to check your pecs. Okay, or anyone who's listening is not didn't realize, not to check your teeth or check your pecs, is to check your technique. So we
And God, can
decided,
I just add something here,
go for
right?
it, yeah.
If you're using the mirror to check your form, for the love of God, stand in a way where you can look at yourself without cricking your neck. Because it's a proper bugbear of mine in the
Yeah.
gym. Oh,
Because
sorry, I just
you
had to
move
add
your
that.
position, don't you? Yeah,
Yeah,
no, completely
yeah,
agree. You will move your position, so don't do it to the point that when you look in the mirror you look good. Do it so it's actually practical. Like the ideal
yeah,
location is in a corner with two mirrors. You
yes.
can see both sides. Yeah, so we got rid of mirrors, and I honestly, I had a group of personal trainers underneath me that I hated because of the toxic culture. And I know it's not nice to say, but when COVID hit and we had to scrap the business and start again, it was a bit of a blessing because we was allowed to start again, our own way. Um, but yeah, I think people need to start realizing the difference between aesthetics and fitness is vast. Yeah, they can cross over, and you get obviously examples like CrossFitters, but look how hard they work, like in all areas. Um, but you generally speak to a bodybuilder in their like stripping phase. Even I used to have great friends with bodybuilders who'd be like, James, just stay away from me for these last 2 weeks. Just leave me alone. I'm like, okay. Or I'll see that maybe they're eating Cocoa Pops and I'll be like, oh, okay, he's in the strip phase. Let's leave him alone. Because even they understand that it's not a nice place to be. But sadly, you have all these influencers online that get paid a lot of money to train for long periods of time. And there's some, like you said, there's some really good eggs out there. Um, but it's a dangerous place to be. And like you you're trying to build this community, this safe place, and similar to me, but there's just not enough of us at the moment, and especially around the neurodivergent phase. So it's sort of like that's a dangerous place to be, and we're trying. I know you're trying. I see some of your content. You're probably trying harder than most, and you put up with a lot. And
Oh
I
yeah.
must commend you for it. To be fair, and even you put some of the energy into to reply. Me, I just get rid of. I don't have the energy to reply for that. But yeah, but really, like, how did you, when you started becoming a PT and you started owning it, what was one of probably the major thing that you changed from like your base knowledge to what you feel neurodivergence needed?
So, I remembered my train of thought before, so I'm just going to finish that point as well
Go
because
for
it's
it,
also
sorry.
really relevant.
Yeah.
No, and then I'll answer this, which is about the qualifying and how I've changed how my approach is. So, I feel a lot of personal trainers are after a good before and after picture of their client. And when mine set me the weight goal, she had a absolutely banging before and after picture of me. Like I looked, the transformation was really good. And I felt as well that once she had that, the level of care and attention I received went because I was never going to have such a stark transformation again. But to answer your next question here, I struggled with the qualification journey, if I'm honest, as well. I think that when I talk about the fitness industry needs changing, it's not just about gyms or the experience within a gym, but I think it's actually the qualification process and the way every course is different, but the one I did was not inclusive. They were awful, actually, and I would not recommend them. I actively disrecommend them. I'm not sure what the word is, but I actively would talk about my like experience, which was not good. Anyway, when I
Feel free to name
qualified,
and shame them. Like,
I mean, they know it's Origin. I qualified with Origin, who are quite a lot of people qualify with Origin. I did level 2, level 3. I'm doing a level 4, and it was little things like I was trying to. Are you familiar with Origin's way of qualifying you running their course?
only a bit similar to, so I did a YMCA sort of hybrid with a company called Lifestyle. So mine was
Okay,
a 2-year apprentice based level 3.
yours is probably better than mine. Mine was self-driven, self-led at
Oh, okay,
home, but
yeah.
all of my assessments were in person at a gym. But some of the training material would be a YouTube video, and you'd have to watch the video to work out how to do this part of the online assessment element. The video had someone with the heaviest Scouser accent, and I I'm quite sensory. I'm quite sensitive with my noise, and I couldn't listen to him. There was no subtitles. I asked for a transcript. They couldn't give me a transcript. I asked for like any other way I could have the information that everyone else has. Why can't I have it? And there was nothing. They couldn't give it to me. So in the end, I actually got an AI add-on thing on my Google and paid for it and got that to pull the video and to work everything out and tell me what I needed to do. But it was awful. And I had panic attacks and everything. Like for a neurodivergent person, it was not friendly. That I mean, I could talk about that all day. But back to now, I am a PT. It was all the idea that PTs are sold to you is that you're in a gym and you pick up clients. That's kind of what you're told. And I don't know if that's true for some. I mean, maybe it is because it comes from somewhere. Maybe that's when it is about aesthetics and not about approach. But having joined a gym myself, that first gym, knowing the anxiety that I had at that time, and I had an induction. I went to this tiny little council-owned gym, and I had to have an induction. You know, some gyms like the big chains, you don't need an induction. You tick a little box that says, yes, I agree that exercise can be dangerous, and then you're fine. I needed to do an induction, so I booked the induction, and I didn't even want to do that. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to wear. And I know for someone who's neurotypical, like that sounds stupid. Of course, you're going to wear trainers. Of course, you're probably going to wear shorts and a t-shirt. But if you've never really been in this world, my parents didn't go to the gym. My brother doesn't go to the gym. Nobody did exercise in my family. I guess we just had relatively active lives, so nobody felt that they wanted to. I knew that from the very start, my whole approach would be different. And what I do with my clients is everything that I wanted or needed when I was in that complete beginner space. So, for instance, the easiest kind of thing I can discuss with you is the way I run inductions. So I work at Chain Gym, I work at JD Gyms, and the way that they do inductions, they do the thing where it's tick a box, so you don't have to have one. But if you do want an induction, on the app, it will tell you that at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, let's say, induction. That's it. That's all it says. And it will be on the gym class timetable. So you have to dig it out. But you get that and you find it. You're like, okay, I'll go for an induction. When you get there, you have to press a button on the wall. You're not told about this, by the way. So you're meant to just turn up. But when you get there, you're meant to press a button on the wall, alert a member of staff, flag them down. I'm here for an induction. Most of the time, unless I'm on shift, I'm told that people have turned up for an induction. They'll tell me themselves, I turned up last week for an induction, nobody was here. Or I turned up and no one could give me a tour. And I would hear that and it would just drive me insane, because these people who are booking an induction are usually the ones that are nervous, and they want that, or not want, they need a little bit of hand holding just to get them in. And so what I do is, in my own time, I don't charge for this, I will let people book me for an induction at the gym. They don't need to be a paying client. I will go, and this is where my kind of thing is, I'm not in it to make money. Like, I need to make money to live. I'm not denying that. I'm definitely not wealthy. But I have this, like, unapologetic urge to help people. That's what I want to do. So people will find my website and I talk a lot about my induction process. They'll then contact me and book an induction. And what I will do is I will not assume anything, but I will offer to meet them outside the gym door before they even need to do like the literal walk through the door, because there's 2 doors there. Only one of them opens and it only opens one way. And you can guarantee they're going to pull the wrong side. Then they're going to push the one and it's going to make them really stressed. So I offer it. And I would say, if I was to put a percentage on it, 80% of everybody I've inducted has wanted me to meet them outside and walk them in. And it's the most simplest of things. Like, it's so simple. And then when they're in there, so I don't even meet them and say, hi, I'm Rhiannon, in we go. I meet them out there and I'll say, okay, how are you feeling? And by the way, I've given them a calendar invite with exactly the way the process is going to run. So what I will do, where we'll go first, what the tour will look like, because my inductions are more of like a big tour of the gym. We don't try any equipment unless it's a treadmill at the end. It's very much a come in the space, feel comfortable. If we've got time, we'll have our chat on a treadmill walking. If we don't, or if you're stressed, we'll sit down at this place here. So they know how it's going to run. But just because somebody knows what to expect doesn't mean they can do it. And it's still this kind of just, people can't often ask for help. So rather than wait for them to not be able to ask, just assume that maybe they will and offer it. And this is how I do it. So I'll check in with them. I'll ask if they've got the app. Most of them do, because like me, they're very studious. They kind of know what they need to do. They just can't put it into practice. And we'll go in, we'll sit down, we'll have a chat. And then it's this just sort of constant checking in. But it's letting them know that if we go on our tour and at any point they're overwhelmed, this place where we're at right now, you can come back here. Like this place is a safe place for you. And it's almost letting them know that they don't need to force themselves to be uncomfortable. And when people, you've mentioned earlier, people comment awful things on my posts, like some of them are really bad. And because I talk a lot about how we should be able to prioritize our health in a way that feels good and a way that feels safe, I get comments that say things like, exercise should be uncomfortable. You won't see any gains if you're in comfort, which is the exact opposite of everything I stand for. Because if somebody who's neurodivergent, and I do think that a bit like reasonable adjustments, these sort of things would help everybody. So I tailor for neurodivergent people because that's me. But Jack or Jill up the road would probably also like the opportunity to have this as a service. But I always say, I want you to feel safe in this area, in the gym. This is why we book an induction. And then if they want to learn the equipment, that's fine. We book a personal training at the end. But where was I going with this tangent? The service that I offer is just, oh, that was it. It was about feeling safe and comfort. So I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable because in my mind, there is a very clear distinction between kind of discomfort and danger. But I know that now. Before my diagnosis and before that time in which I could advocate for me, danger and discomfort, it was just a blur. And so when people talk about you need to be uncomfortable, I think what they're talking about is discomfort. So they're talking about you need to push your muscles and you need to work in, progressive overload. And if you want to see progress, and I get that. But the way in which they're framing this idea of discomfort, that for a neurodivergent person could be danger, which could be shut down, sensory overwhelm, panic. No client should ever have to feel like that's where they need to get to. And so we can, as a personal trainer, when you're running a session, you can push somebody, but you're pushing them in a way where they still feel safe, comfortable, and they trust you. And they trust you to notice that if they're struggling. And there's a difference between struggling because the weight's heavy or struggling because right now that flickering light they cannot stop thinking about. The person banging the weights over there is making their whole body jump every time. Then they've got someone on a treadmill, squeaky shoes. Then they've got the doors opening, maybe the fire alarm's going off, maybe someone smells a bit too much of body odor and they can't focus. And then what's going to happen is they get so overwhelmed, that's when an injury will happen. That's when they'll shut down, and that's when they will decide, I can't do this anymore. And they leave and they don't come back. And so even when I have like a long-term client, and I say long-term, like I've done it for months, I'm only 7 months in, like December to July, it's not long. But my clients, they just know that I have their individual comfort in my mind at all times. And that means that they can give me their all because they trust that I would never put them in a position where they do have to push through. And I think that's where my approach is so different. If we ignore the induction for a sec, it's about just focusing on the well-being of my client that isn't just, push harder, no pain, no gain. I hate that. It's not what I do. And that's it really. Oh, I need a breath.
No, do you know what? And I know, and the way you brought up that as a neurodivergent, there's sort of overthinking, literal thinking, etc., and it's so dangerous, especially if you're trying to train a beginner to start and enjoy and get. But also on the flip side, before I was diagnosed and realized that I was autistic and had ADHD, I I threw myself into a lot of training. So at one point, I was probably training MMA. So I did 7 sessions of 5 different martial arts a week, and I was restricted with my eating. And it was probably, apart from participating, it's probably the most miserable time that I had because other factors. So I was training for fights and they would get cancelled, and I was like, I put in all this effort and I'd have injury and I'd be battered and bruised. And it wasn't until I started understanding myself a bit better did I work out, oh, okay, I'm enjoying these aspects of it, but the whole you've got to push your body to be a peak athlete to ridiculous levels it's stupid. And you do actually, if you go out your way and you watch documentation and things like that, these guys get to do it because of the recovery and the aftercare and all of that they get. So to tell someone that they have to go beyond and they have to push themselves and the no pain, no gain, literal thinking is probably the worst advice ever. And
Yeah.
they don't see the behind the scenes of the recovery and the aftercare that people have for these pro athletes or these crossfitters or these weightlifters or any other people, and even these influencers that do it so their body looks like a bloody statue of David. They will then turn the camera off and either go lay down for the rest of the day or go sit in an ice bath or go had an IV drip or whatever it is they need to, and take the makeup off to stop themselves looking pale as a ghost because they're malnourished. Um, and I think, yeah, like I said, it's so dangerous for neurodivergents to take a lot of neurotypical advice because there isn't that understanding of that literal thinking, that overthinking, the decision paralysis, and even the and obviously, if you, no offense if you use this, the whole put your gym clothes by your door. Yeah, I'm avoiding my
Oh,
door. I don't go to my door unless I want to leave my house. So why am I going to pick up my gym clothes? Fair enough. If I left them on the stairs and I tripped up on them, then it might encourage me a bit more. But by my door, that means I'm leaving the house. I've already thought about leaving the house. That ain't happening. And it's all
hmm
these holistic people that you hear have these little quirky things that make them sound special. When really, to a neurodivergent, it's like, no, that ain't gonna work either. So then you
yeah.
just feel bad
And
about yourself.
every neurodivergent person's different as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So what works for me won't work for you. And what works for someone else won't work for someone else. And I think that, yeah, when you have these very prescribed things, or you have like habit stacking, which is a really good thing, but it's not like a neurodivergent person can't think, I'm just going to start doing that after I do that. Because we have our routines or we have executive functioning skills. So for me, when I'm mentally, so I have depression, I take quite strong medication for it. And when I am in a peak, no, a trough, I really struggle with just life things like showering. And so for me, if I'm in that really down place, I can't go to the gym because I know that I can't shower after. And the showering thing, then I feel icky and horrible. And someone might just say, well, all you need to do is shower. Like, come on, don't be stupid. You just shower. It's not hard. For me, something about it, whether it's just everything to do with showering when I'm in that place, I cannot do. And so no amount of putting my clothes by the door is going to make me go to the gym because I know it's not that, it's the bit after. And trying to explain that to somebody who just doesn't understand executive functioning, they think you're crazy because they think the hard part is the gym. It's not, it's everything else that happens around it. But I try very hard to not let my routine go when I'm very, not in a great place. And so I now have, and people laugh at me, but I have they're like old people body wipes for when people are too weak or their mobility is as such where they can't shower themselves. They can sort of have like a wipe down. It's not great. It's not a shower, but it's something that actually means I can still go to the gym. And I do shower. It's so much harder. And I think that there's this, people think things should just be easy or you just make a decision and you can just do, but we can't. It doesn't work like that. And that's what we need to change, is this kind of one size fits all approach, because it's not at all. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
something we need to work on in general, I think.
yeah, and you said it, that just do it phase is like, I think I've had a discussion with someone. It's like, oh, if you just, and okay, and I went, okay, I'll tell you what my just implies. One, getting out of bed. Two, putting my clothes on. Three, getting downstairs. Four, and I listed probably about 14 steps before I'd even considered leaving the house. And I was like, oh, you just, no, that my brain will check every one of those steps. And my routine is probably nigh on exactly the same every morning. And if it gets disrupted, then nothing else is happening for the rest of the day. That includes gyms and workouts. I have to schedule them in, and I work out from home. So it's not like I have to leave the house. And, and like you too, I had that mental like battle as well. It's very important for me to keep that exercise in check. So like for me, I'm a suicide survivor. I know how important it is for me to exercise, but it still isn't as easy of, oh, just go and exercise. And I know it, for me, is life or death. I will get depressed to the point where I'll get to that dark place again, and yet I still can't just exercise. And it baffles people how they can't understand that. And
Yeah.
if you try and explain it, you're then being pedantic or you're blowing it out of proportion. And you're like, no, like
Yeah.
that's how my brain works. It analyzes every single step. You might be able to walk 20 steps up the road and not even think about it. I will feel every one of those steps.
Yeah.
And
And it's
yeah,
putting yourself in someone else's shoes, isn't it? Because my partner, about a year ago, had mental health issues for the first time. So we've been always polar opposites. I've been like unwell in the head, she's been unwell in the body, but we've always balanced ourselves out. But last year she had a mental health blip, and she came to me the one time and she said, I get it now. I get it. She's always been very, very supportive. I've been incredibly, incredibly lucky with my partner, like very privileged. And she's always supported me when I've not been well. But I always knew that she didn't really get it. I was just lucky that she got it enough to trust that I was not bullshitting and that I was struggling. And yeah, she came to me and she was like, I get it. And she said that she needed to experience it herself to be able to understand how debilitating mental health can be. Because when you're in a bad place and you physically cannot get out of bed because you just can't, that is a real thing. People think you're being lazy, and or it's an excuse, you know, you just want to stay in bed. It's not. You do anything to get up, but something, whatever it is, stops you and you can't. And I think you only understand it if you experience it yourself, or if somebody that you're very close to maybe goes through something. But it shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to experience something yourself to believe it or trust it. But it seems society that we live in, that's how it is. They don't believe. They think that if they can do it, you should be able to do it. Sucks.
I think like the key sort of there is, and for neurotypicals that are listening, if you're, I hate the word ally, but if you're doing that sort of thing, then empathy is the key here. Try and understand. And even as neurodivergents, we fall into this trap. Like I live in a very supportive household. Like 3 out of 4 of us are definitely, the fourth, he's too small, but we're pretty sure he's there as well.
It'll
And
be coming.
sometimes, yeah, and sometimes it's like I forget that other people's like traits and sort of personalities show up differently, and I can get frustrated with my wife and forget about her ADHD, and she can get frustrated with me and forget. But it's that pulling it back and realizing, and I think a lot of people, neurodivergent and neurotypicals, don't do that. They're too scared to admit they've slipped up, and it's that empathy side of it that people just afraid. And a lot of the time, it's all right, fair enough. You ballsed up, you said something dodgy, or you did something dodgy. We'll learn from it, move on. And I think a lot of neurodivergence, once that bridge has been made, we forget it. But if that bridge is not made, we stew in it. So it's
Oh
much better
yeah.
for us, yeah, if you apologise, clear the air, and we can both move on. Otherwise, neither of us are moving on.
Yeah. And it's painful for a long time.
Oh yeah, rejection sensitivity is an absolute kicker, and if you've never
Yeah.
experienced it, like for anyone who's listening, you've never experienced rejection sensitivity, I envy you, because I can say personally it has affected my business, my social media, my marriage, my everything, especially up till recently. And it pops up now and then. And I can imagine the same with yourself. You show up on camera, but it must be so hard sometimes to do that. You still do it because you want to put a service out there. But tell the guys, like,
Mm.
you must struggle with
It's hard.
it.
Oh, there are some days where I can't look. So like I said at the start, I'm following my energy and what gives me energy. And to be honest, that is being vulnerable. Now, I don't do vulnerability in person. I can do it on a screen like this, one to one. I could do it to a group. In person, I don't do vulnerability. I guess a safeguarding thing for myself, childhood trauma, whatever. I have therapy every week. He's the best therapist ever. Costs me a lot of money, but best hour of my week every week. But I love being vulnerable because I don't get to be vulnerable in real life. Like in quote unquote real life, in person, I wouldn't call it masking, but I don't want to let myself get to a place where I feel vulnerable because I feel weak and I don't like that. Online, weirdly, it feels safe for me to be vulnerable. And I don't know what that says about my trauma as a child. Probably, who knows? We won't go into that. But as long as I feel in control of my vulnerability And this is where that whole online, offline thing comes in. And you think about influencers, and this is very different to me, but if you think about the image they portray here, and then everything else that goes on behind the scenes, so the ice baths, the leg compressions, stocking things, all of that stuff, you're seeing this one thing, not the other. Now, when you're online, you choose what image comes out and how you portray yourself. And so for me, I choose to be vulnerable because it's in my vulnerability that I connect with people, I think. And I'm going to sound really arrogant here. I'm a good person in person. It's not that I'm a horrible person. I save all my goodness for online. It's that the deep work, the kind of deep topics I only feel comfortable doing when I'm very in control. There can be no external things that catch me off guard. Because when I'm in this place of talking about challenges or accessibility and things, it takes a toll. It takes a toll. So you put stuff out into the universe online, and for me, it's quite exhausting because I'm emotional, I'm vulnerable, I'm honest. And then what happens is, I mean, for me, I did expect it. The first viral video I got, which one was it? I think it's 5 seconds. And I stood my camera up on some stairs at the gym and I walked past it. That's all I did. And I knew if I put that online and said, I'm Rhiannon, I'm a personal trainer with autism and ADHD, and I specialize in helping neurodivergent or autistic people get started on their health and fitness journey, I knew it would trigger people. And that was my first viral video. At that point, I had 200 followers. It was only about 60 days ago that I put that video out. As of today, I'm on 1.4 million profile views on Instagram in the last 30 days. So it's crazy, my growth. And it's because I trigger people. Now, when I put that out, I knew that would be what happened. And I know you said you block them. Now, I realize that there's value in the algorithm, which is why I leave them and why I try and engage always from a place of kindness. But the reason I do it is because there's no one doing it like that. And if there are, please comment or let me know, because I want to connect with whoever it is that's doing this. We need to have more bodies that are different, just existing, to see that you can belong in the gym. And for every 10 awful comments that I get, and they're awful, some of them, I will get a direct message from somebody who says, you inspired me to join a gym. And they won't comment it, because what happens on a viral video that's getting trolled is whoever comments will get trolled. And there's this like catalyst of, oh, it's just a horrible thing that happens. And I have PTs that I work with, some of who I love, they're lovely, some of who I just work with. And I get a little bit sad that the ones in which I really connect with don't comment. But then the one came up to me the other day and said something along the lines of, how do you cope? How can you put that out there? Now, this person is your on paper stereotypical looking personal trainer. They are neurodivergent. However, they look, because the fitness industry is about how you look. They don't look different. They look like they fit in. And I just said, because I know that I need to do this, because if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And they literally said, I don't comment because I couldn't handle what you get. And it shouldn't be like that at all. And it is hard. Now, I have days, like last week I was awful and I couldn't look at it at all last week. I'd make some content, put it out and just sort of shut my eyes, because I know what the comments are going to say. And when I'm in a good place, I can look at them and I can almost laugh. So the funniest ones are just stupid comments like, I would rather go to a financial advisor that is homeless. And it's like, well, I'm a qualified personal trainer proclaiming to be a personal trainer and I'm qualified. So it's not quite the same, but, or it'd be, you can't be a personal trainer, you must be a personal eater. It's so original. But when I'm in a bad place, yeah, it's really hard, because then I focus on words that begin with an R that I'm not going to say, that start with the beginning of my name, which is RHI, but with an RE, like re something. And I'm like, it's a horrible word. Or there'll be one, just horrible words. And when they are particularly bad, yeah, I block them. When it's not funny, and I'm not saying any of it's funny, but when it hits me and I cannot find a funny thing in it, I will block them, because when I've left them, those are the people who go out of their way to bully and belittle and troll and make you feel shit. So yeah, it's exhausting. Just to go back to your question, it's exhausting putting things online and being as kind of vulnerable as I am, or at least as honest as I am. But the reason I do it is because if all we see is the people, the influencers who have everything done for them and have the teams behind them, how can I expect my ideal clients to come to the gym? They're not going to do it because they're scared. So yeah, I don't know what the question was now. It's gone. But I'm very passionate just about people feeling that they're represented in the fitness world. That's all that matters. And you can be any shape, any size, any colour, any height, whatever. And you can see yourself in a fitness world doing exercise, getting on a machine, because you can. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got off on one.
You didn't, by the way, you didn't. You actually
Oh,
answered
phew.
it perfectly, so that's fine. But honestly, I know it's exhausting, but keep doing what you're doing. And if I'm getting a fraction of the responses that you're getting about how that positive impact is, then I can only imagine the people that you're impacting and touching. And funny enough, I had this conversation today. I think our tribe are what they call in the industry as lurkers and watchers. We don't speak up because we are afraid that some idiot is going to make a comment and then shut us down. So I have.
And they then do that, don't they? They
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it
yeah,
then.
yeah. And I have people go from I've never seen them like a post, I've never seen them comment, and then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, can I work with you?" Or like a new school community I'm developing, someone come forward and went, "I want to work with you because I want a space where I don't sound like an idiot or I don't sound like I'm bothering people," and that breaks my heart that we are sadly working in a platform that people feel that way. Equally, we also need to do it because, like you said, we need to earn a living. We're not doing it for the money, but we need to earn a living. Let's lighten the mood a bit. This is all about being unapologetically neurodivergent. Let us know what is one of your like most chaotic neurodivergent moments, whether it's funny or whether it's just one of them. Oh shit, that's really neurodivergent.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think for a sec.
Yeah, go for it.
One of my most neurodivergent things. Okay, right. So back when I was at college, so I went to school in location A, and as soon as I could leave, I didn't want to stay and do sixth form there. I wanted to go to college far, far away because I hated home, hated school, did not want to be there. So I used to have to get a 40-minute train to college in the morning. So I would walk from my house to the station, which was about 15 minutes. I'd wait, get the train, and then I'd have about a 15-minute walk. That was fine the other side. Now, when I have exams, I don't know, everyone's different, but my brain, I can't cram in the morning before an exam. So I would basically I have a very good memory. I'd memorize everything, like properly just memorize it. Wouldn't necessarily understand it, but could pass the test. And then in the morning, I would not look at anything to do with that exam because it would just muddle me because I already knew it. It was already in there. And I remember this one day, it was my A level. So I had I don't know what exam it was, but I had an exam. I walked down to the station. I sat on this, at train stations, they have those like raised beds with plants in and their little wall. Sat on the wall, playing Angry Birds on my phone with my headphones on. And the train came, the train left, and I'm still playing my Angry Birds. And I remember just looking up as the train was leaving. And my parents, they're self-employed. They had jobs to go to. And my dad was furious that he had to drive me in because I was going to miss this A-level exam because there was a train every hour. So it was like, I don't know, 7:20 train to get there for a 9 o'clock start. And then if I had to get there 8:20, well, I'd only get there for 10. So I was going to miss it. So that was a scatty brain moment probably for me. And that kind of sums me up for all the best intentions of the world and like doing all my revision, knowing everything, trying to just chill in the morning. all goes wrong. So that's probably like for a thinking of off the top of my head, that is probably one. Sums me up really.
No, it's a great example, and also I'd like to say thank you for pointing out that whole "if I know it, I know it" mentality around revising and tests, because that's how I approached it. I could not revise; it never stuck in. There was no dopamine attached to it for me to want to revise, and I always went
No.
in there, and you'd boss multiple choice because there was always the correct answer there that you'd recognise, like you said. But I always had
Yeah.
this, well, if I know it, I know it. Like an hour before or the night before, it's not going to change anything. And if I don't know 80 to 90% of what I've learned, then one night of extra learning that's going to be boring as hell is not going to change it. So thank
Yeah.
you for just like clarifying that and validating my whole school,
People
my
would
whole
sit
schooling.
there before with their books, like, frantically trying to read, and I should be like, that looks really stressful. That's not what I want to do. So, yeah,
You had to
no.
cram a whole year's worth of studying into one night just to hope you remember what 10% of that? I know.
Yeah, and they're not going to ask that question, are they? Because that's the way it would always be. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, something else I always like to ask guests, and if you whoever listened before would know. So what I do is I frame it as someone that you might know or might not know. They're on the start of their neurodivergent journey. Maybe they're unsure, or maybe they've decided not diagnosed, and they want just a bit of guidance. What's a little bit of advice that you could give to someone that's starting that neurodivergent self-discovery to make that journey just that little bit easier, that maybe something that you never had or something that you actually realized early on that helped in your own journey?
Are we talking about neurodivergence or fitness?
Neurodivergence in general, it can be neurodivergence and fitness, whatever. It's just a little nugget of
Okay.
advice that you just wish you knew.
So, I would say that if you go through your GP, you and there's services available, you will get given surveys or questionnaires to fill in. And if you're neurodivergent, it can be really hard to fill in a questionnaire, let alone 2 or 3. And my biggest piece of advice is if you're starting that journey, talk to your loved ones or trusted ones. And that can be your chosen family. It doesn't have to be your family. But talk to them, because you will most likely need help just to fill in the forms to get the process started. It took me months to do 2 questionnaires, and my wife had to sit down and do them with me. There's a weird irony in it that trying to get someone with unmedicated ADHD to sit down and fill out a really important form, that should be the assessment in itself, because I don't know anybody who's been able to do it just there and then. So it would be just, if you've any inkling that you might be, I think you should pursue a diagnosis, like go and find out, because I've been talking about this recently on my platforms. I believe self-diagnosis is 1000% valid. I do. I fully believe it, because I think if somebody is at that point where they believe that they are neurodivergent, whether it's autism, OCD, ADHD, whatever it is, for them to get to that point, in my eyes, means that they most likely are, because it means their life has been quite hard and they've got to that place where they think they are. And as I've said, access to services is hard, but do try, because my ADHD medication saved my life. Because once I got medicated, my autism, then it didn't get worse, because autism doesn't get worse, but the way in which I presented my autism was a lot more intense. And that is what enabled me to understand myself and do that therapy, that deep work of what I need to succeed. And I dread to think, like you mentioned, you're a suicide survivor. Like, I dread to think, if I hadn't have got my diagnosis and had access to my medication, where I would be. Because honestly, I wasn't on a journey to a good place. And if there's any way that you can get support, medication, therapy, whatever it is, you have to try, because it genuinely can save your life. So yeah, that's it.
That's absolutely great. And to be honest, the more people I speak to, the more fortunate I realize I am, because when I went for my diagnosis, I was very tuned up. I'd been in the industry for a long time inside the mental health and neurodivergent industry, as well as the fitness space. So I knew what I was available to myself, so I could have phoned the GP. I requested right to choose before anything else. They sent me to a mental health team, and I basically filled the forms up over the phone with the mental health team. I had secondary forms to fill out just before my assessment, but there were nothing. These forms did hardly anything. So again, yeah, I up until recently I took for granted how easy I've had it with my assessments and most of my journey because I've been absorbed into inclusivity and into everything else, and it wasn't until I come out of that space did I realize. So yeah, that like you said, that's so important to get that assessment and not let it hinder the process because just around the corner, and I say it with my journey as well. If if it ends, you don't know, you don't know all the good that can happen afterwards, and I think and sadly there is this black fog that blocks that vision of the future, and 9 times out of 10, once we break through that black fog, it is 1,000 times better than what we could even imagine it would ever be. Like when I was 18, I would never believed I would be sitting here talking to people like yourself. So yeah, that's perfect advice. Um, what I have failed to mention though is you do a podcast. So
Yes, I
why
do.
don't you tell the guys about your podcast?
So, my podcast is the Not So Typical Fitness podcast. And I love podcasts and I've wanted to do a podcast for years and years and years. And I could never settle on a topic. And every job I did, and I've been in about like, probably, I worked it out once as 17 different industries over 12 years, like an insane amount of jobs. And I always thought I could do a podcast on this, I could do a podcast on that. And actually, finally, I found where I was destined to be, which is to be supporting people in the way I am. And this is the podcast that I'm meant to be doing. So, yes, I'm on episode 15 now, I think. It's weekly. And it's just me. It's just me chatting away about health and fitness from a neurodivergent perspective. And just to, again, it's making it accessible to people who don't yet know that they're neurodivergent or don't yet know that they need support in a different way. And it's an opportunity for me just to be me. And I think when you've masked for 30 years, I didn't even know what music I liked. I didn't know what my favourite colour was. I lived in black clothes because I just didn't know. And that's why everything now is pink. And I love because I've realised I love pink. So everything is pink. And yeah, it's my safe place, another safe place that I've created for me because there wasn't enough safe places for me. And I like to think it's also a safe place for people who feel a bit different, unsure, nervous, and afraid. And it's unfortunately, I don't have any guests and I point blank refuse to have guests. Otherwise, I would invite you on, James, I promise. Um, I've had lots of people try and tell me, oh, but you should do guests because then you get more exposure and then you get this. And to be honest, I do the podcast because it's important that I talk about these things. I'm not doing it for exposure, not my podcast. It is very much, it's meant to be a resource. And I know this is too, like, I'm not diminishing that, but it's for me, it's almost like a resource that I needed. So I'm making it. That's it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And to be honest, I probably started about 4 or 5 podcasts, and it wasn't until I started talking to more like-minded neurodivergents more and enjoy those conversations. So is that when I realized, hang on, I want to do this on a larger scale. I want to chat to these awesome neurodivergents around the world that have become unapologetically neurodivergent and start spreading their stories because ultimately the neurodivergents of the world need to hear these powerful stories of these people that have overcome the trials and tribulations of being neurodivergent, whether from a young age or recently diagnosed or self-diagnosed. Just people that are proud to be neurodivergent. And I think you have every right to go, do you know what? No, this is my space. I'm recording it for me, and if someone else learns from it, and that's the sort of attitude that I've taken, and I've enjoyed, like in this one included, every conversation I've had with you guys. So if no one listens to it, at least I've had a good chat with a fellow neurodivergent and learned more about myself and other people.
You know what I like about my podcast, and I don't know if you do this, it might just be a me thing, because I have a friend that is a podcaster as well, and she doesn't do this. But when my podcast gets released, I will listen to it properly from a platform in which it's on. So it's everywhere. You can find my podcast on any platform that you listen to podcasts on. But I will go and listen to it on Spotify as I'm driving on times 2, because I listen to everything on times 2. But I have to listen to it because then I'm hearing it in the way in which other people are hearing it, which is very different to editing and looking at it on a screen. But also, sometimes I need to hear my own podcast. And this sounds so stupid, but I've changed gyms once already in the 7 months. Like, I struggle to find my place. I've found it now, I think, and touch wood, it's good. But before that, I worked at a Pure Gym. And when I changed jobs, I lasted 6 weeks at Pure Gym. It wasn't the place for me. Then I joined JD's, but I was so scared again to start somewhere new that I have a podcast episode on gym anxiety, and I have a podcast episode on what my approach is and why it's needed. And so I had to listen to them on my drive to work for the first day, because I knew that those resources were exactly what I needed. And I love that. It's like I've created my own little cheerleading podcast for me. And it's powerful when you can, a podcast, you're in someone's mind, and you can be with them while they're driving. They could be walking, they might be at the gym, and you're like in there, and you have the ability to make real change when you can pose these big questions or have these important conversations. And I think podcasting is really important. And yeah, that's why I'm really excited to be here, is because these conversations, I think they can drive so much change in a really inclusive, like eye-opening way, which is what we need.
Yeah, as for me, I do listen to it back, but because I edit it, I will listen to it about 4 times while editing it, and then I'll do like a highlight reel where I'll go through. But what I do like is, as you can probably relate, not everything sinks in on day one. Like, you live in the moment, you have the conversation in the moment, and then as soon as we go away, I'll go indoors and I'll probably forget half the conversation with until it starts trickling back. But when I watch back, I'm like, that is hilarious, or I can't believe she said that, or that's funny, or that was absolutely pure gold. And but even it took me some time to want to even hear my own voice for a while, but I'm over that. But yeah, I do enjoy listening to this back. But equally, this is not about me. This is about you. So it's been an absolute pleasure. But can you tell the guys like where they can find more about you, your Instagram handle, your website that you mentioned, and anything else that you want to share so people can reach out and get more of your powerful story and how you can help people?
Yeah, I'd love that. Thanks. So the website is not so typical fitness.co.uk, and these will be in the show notes, I assume, anyway, so
Sure.
hopefully they'll be able to click. Yeah, cool. So not so typical fitness, that's the website. And I would say social media platforms, if you're easily triggered by comments to do with body size mostly and neurodivergence, I would probably recommend Instagram over TikTok. My TikTok is the worst place at the moment. But on both of those, my handle is Rhiannon Cooper PT. I have my podcast, which is Not So Typical Fitness Podcast. I actually really enjoy LinkedIn as well, because I've had many jobs. So I have quite a good LinkedIn, not good, but I enjoy being on LinkedIn. So that is Rhiannon Coop, I think, but I'll have to double check. And then I'm on YouTube as well, of course, and that's Rhiannon Coop on that one too. But yeah, basically, if you see something that's pink, it's usually me, I think, at the moment. So yeah, lots of pink. But I have just today released my gym anxiety toolkit, which is for people who maybe are wanting to start like the very beginnings of a gym journey, and they just don't know how to go about it. It's like 7 steps to not overcome gym anxiety, but to feel prepared and like you can start your journey. And that is going to be, no, it is live right now, so that you can find that on my website. And yeah, I just would love people to have a look, because I've got a load of resources on there. They're all free. I have a free community for people who, I guess, want to prioritise their health in a way that works for them but don't quite know how. That's available on there as well. And yeah, I'm more than happy to chat to people. In fact, I love chatting to people. So yeah, just find me somewhere. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and my website, really. And probably other places. I had someone make a fake profile for me on Twitter this week. Crazy. So look for the tick, because I am verified. Yeah, please, God.
It's been an absolute pleasure. No, that's fine. And I'll make sure that there's links and stuff like that. And if you want, I'll even drop a link for the resource as well directly, because in case anyone gets confused on the website. But it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. And
yeah, thank you. It's been great.